Today on SteamPunk Minecraft, the power station. In today's video, we're going to be harnessing the power of steam. But first, we have to automate blaze cakes, set up a water source, get lots of chickens, and feed some hungry blazes. We're continuing down the path of progress in this episode of SteamPunk Minecraft. You want to play mod packs with friends, but you can't seem to find a good server. And the free ones? With the big mod packs these days, free servers are just too laggy. Luckily for you, there's BISECT hosting. They host my server, and with plenty of affordable options, they can host your server too. And the best part is, they support almost every mod pack. Use code Doublesal at checkout for 25% off your first order. BISECT hosting, a great site for great servers. Would you believe me if I told you that the secret to power was lots of eggs? Well, that's true. I wouldn't lie to you. And we're gonna need lots of cages for all those chickens who are gonna lay those eggs. Unfortunately, we have to go through the boring process of crafting said cages. So that's exactly what I did. Got some of my iron bars, and crafted some of the finest cages a chicken could ever want. After that, it was time to go searching for said chickens. So I made my way to the airport looking for the best mode of transportation, that being the Gyrodyne. Airships, Titanic, they're cool, but they have nothing on the reliable Gyrodyne. It's eco-friendly because it doesn't burn fuel, and well, it's just a fun word to say. Gyrodyne, Gyrodyne, Gyrodyne. Try saying that a bunch of times. Anyways, the Gyrodyne took me to this village, and though this wasn't the chicken I was looking for, it was an airship, which made me believe that the villagers were evolving, ascending even, though they didn't have any loot worth taking. So after that, I decided to start flying along this wall of chunk. I guess my world was having some chunk glitches, considering that after every update they add new mods, which changes the world generation. I don't know, but I came across this treehouse hoping to find some chickens, and there wasn't a chicken to be seen, though there was a lot of watermelon and a lot of little XP stuff, but no chickens. I kept exploring around even to the bottom of the tree, but not a single bird. I flew a great distance until I finally came across the things I was looking for, my prized chickens. Yes, there was a beautiful hill, and on that hill were all of the chickens I needed. Just enough to get a chicken farm started. I even came across, oh, that's not a chicken, no thank you. Oh, and I also came across this little guy. He was coming home as well. Anyways, once I had my chickens, I decided to dig them a cozy little pit in the ground where I was going to have them breed until I had the perfect population for my power machine. Yes, these chickens were living the life, all the food they could eat and all the fun they could have. As for the raccoon, he was going to stay guard in his little cage. And watch as I break the laws of physics. I don't know how that works, but yeah, there you go. New home right there. Anyways, the reason we need eggs is because we're making blaze cakes, and one of the required ingredients for this cake is, of course, eggs. Now, to get us started, like I said before, we were going to need a lot of chickens, but we also needed a build site for our brand new power plant. Yes, we did have another power station that I built a few episodes ago, but that one ran on a different fuel, and this one was going to be way bigger and run purely on steam. So, to get that started, we were going to have to build the perfect chicken farm. Here I am setting up all the chutes so that all the eggs they were going to lay for our blaze cakes would go down into one tiny little chest. That chest would store all of the fuel that we were going to need to get this power plant started, a power plant that our world would depend on. After building the funnel system, I surrounded it with slabs so that I could have a little platform to walk around on just to monitor the chickens and their behavior. I made a little ladder, that way I could get up there, and then after that, the next goal was to craft some trap doors so that the chickens could have a nice little barricade to look through. Couldn't have them free roaming around. This was not that type of chicken farm. I got the barricades, I raised them up about 2 blocks, that way the chickens couldn't hop over, and then after that I began transferring each bird one by one via the cage. And in case you were wondering, this is what the funnels look like when they are in action. I climbed down to check the chest, and as you can see, even though we have a 3x3 grid, all the eggs were ending up in the one chest. Now it was time for the next thing. To make some cake, you are going to need some sugar. Thankfully, we had an abundance here at the cake factory. I grabbed some, and then I made my way back to the area where the chickens were to make an infinite water source because we were going to be growing more sugarcane for our beautiful sugarcane farm. And honestly, I don't know how many more of these I have to make, but it feels like I make them at least every other episode. Hopefully this is the last one, because after that, sugarcane, well, I mean, how much other use can we get from it? I put some trapdoors around to make it look nice, and once that was done, it was time to create the harvester. Speaking of making these things every other episode, we have our harvester here. I mean, it wouldn't be a Doublesal episode if we didn't make one. I added some glue. You guys know the drill. We've made this tons of times before. If you don't know how to make one by now, well, I don't know what to say. Anyways, the harvester was done, and here is where we're going to grind the sugarcane into sugar. You get a 50% chance to get an extra piece, and here is the minecart here. All we have to do is give it a little push, and the harvester starts doing its thing. Just going back and forth, harvesting infinite sugarcane, and it seems like we were set with the sugar, because once I switched that funnel to go outward, all the sugar dropped down into the millstone and ground up right there. Look at that, it's being stored in the chest. Of course, we have to increase our chicken population, like I've said before. Thankfully, I have lots of seeds, and they have a lot of time on their hands. Now that we have that, we need to tackle the next problem, netherrack, because we need cinder flour, the flour for our blaze cake. It only makes sense that blazes eat cakes made out of netherrack. I mean, what else would they eat? There was lots of netherrack in the power drill storage, the same drill that we had used last episode to clear out a mountain. Unfortunately, when I tried to collect the drill to move its inventory, the minecart didn't agree with me and moved forward. If I wanted to move this machine, there had to be a minecart with a furnace under it, and I tried crafting it, but my game was glitching and it was taking multiple tries. And then I realized my body temperature was rising, and also the fact that I was lacking a lever. I had to craft the lever, but I guess I don't know how to craft them until I did, and then after that I went back to the machine, placed the lever. Once it was one entity, I right-clicked it with my wrench, and I was finally able to get it in my inventory just in the nick of time before I burned and died of heat stroke. And that pool of water, that was just the thing I needed to cool off. After that, I went back to the worksite and began working with these large crushing wheels. We were going to need the crushing wheels to break up that netherrack into the fine cinder flour for our blaze cake. After that, I began installing the belts where all of the ingredients were going to go and meet in one spot at the center of a basin where they were going to be pressed or mixed together. There's the basin right there. All of our eggs, our flour, and our sugar, all the ingredients needed to craft the ultimate power source, the blaze cake. Now, once that was done, I added the mixer that would combine all the ingredients together, and it was simply a matter of setting up the cogwheels and giving the machine life. I added these gearboxes, that way all of the conveyor belts went in the proper direction, can't have the ingredients going the wrong way, and once that was complete, it was simply a matter of checking out my work and making sure it looked good, and yes it did. Double check your work, everyone, especially when it comes to Minecraft builds. As you can see, the eggs were now on the belt, making their way to the basin. It was time to unleash the netherrack so that it could get crushed. So I stocked up the netherrack into the chest, and it immediately began going onto the belt, crushed into cinder flour. Once the netherrack was there, a creeper decided to make its appearance and blow up my work. So always be vigilant, especially during the day, because creepers, I hate them. But yes, all of the ingredients were being joined together, and I realized I had the wrong block. I needed a press, not a mixer, so I put a press there, and then the machine got overstressed. Once I resolved that issue, I tossed whatever extra ingredients I had in my inventory into the basin, and just let it get smushed together. And finally now, we had a working system that made us blaze cakes. Everything was working in harmony. The sugarcane was being harvested at a decent rate. The chickens were laying eggs at an okay rate, even though they were crammed. Yeah, everything was working as well as it could, but I'm sure we could fine-tune it a little more. But we need a building to house all this stuff, and the Temple of Power was that place to do it. I cleared the land and made sure it was nice and flat because we were going to be using our good old schematic cannon once again. What would we be without the schematic cannon to start building our tower? And I had to look at the bridge as reference there because I wanted everything to align up. Once I had my schematic, I just simply had to place down the preview, and this is the worst part of Create when you place down a huge preview because it makes your game lag. Spoiler, cover your eyes if you don't want to see what the building's going to look like because the preview, well, this is the building itself. There it is, oh, in all of its glory. Well, you know what, it could be a little more glorious, and it will be once everything is constructed. Now, it was time to start demolishing all of the old setups that we had because the building was so large it actually went over the stuff we had already placed. This stuff was going to end up getting buried if we didn't move it, so I moved it out and my cannon started doing its thing. Leave a comment down below if you want me to start building things by hand again, because if you think that this cannon spoils me, well, you and I are in agreement. I mean, honestly, half of the stuff we have, more than half, is thanks to the schematic cannon. So, yeah, you know what, maybe we should go back to building things by hand. But here was what it looked like when it was about, almost halfway done. Yes, the cannon is a beauty. As is the build, the power station was complete. Almost complete. You see, we still had to fit it in with all of the machines, but this is what the interior looks like before all that was done. We have a few entrances and exits, and lots of space for all the machines we want to build here. We have 2 identical halls on both sides of the building. We're definitely going to need them for the size of the sugarcane farm. And as you can see, these are our engines and the water that's going to power the engines. Well, the water that's going to course through the engines. It's the heat that powers them after all. And as you can see over here, I've decided that this is where I was going to put all of my stuff. And there's a friend that spawned right there. The water was going to fill these engines up. We had all the pumps and all the belts, everything to get this place going. There's the pipes there. And yeah, it was simply a matter of getting this place fitted out. But once it was set, this was going to be a literal powerhouse. The building could also act as a base of operations. As you can see, I have a few rooms over here, 2 on each end of the building, so you can, I don't know, store something here, make a bedroom, whatever you want. The space is there. And then we also have this fancy colonnade here, where when you actually get further away from the building, you can truly appreciate what it looks like. And I was going for a monumental type thing here. I always do. I don't know why, it's just something I love to build. And this is the side of the building with a large row of windows, and now it was time to move in. One of the first things I did was starting to get the engines warmed up. So I started by doing the water wheel placement here. After all, water wheels are a basic source of power, but they're essential for starting even the mightiest of power plants. After that, I began supplying the engines with fuel, that being the logs, which were being placed into the blaze burners by this mechanical arm, a true marvel of the Create mod. This is pretty cool, especially since we don't use it all that often. After that, the engine started coming to life, fluctuating between level 4 and level 5, with the arm supplying a steady flow of logs for them to burn, that being the blaze burners. Yes, the engine was moving, although it wasn't nearly as powerful as it could be. So it was up to me to harness the full potential of our steam engines, that being with the power of the blaze cake. I took all of the setup we had previously made and moved it inside. I even installed the netherrack grinder right underneath for the sake of saving some space. Yes, everything was going to run perfectly, although it was a little dark, so I did add some lamps so that we could see our beautiful creation. The chickens were laying tons of eggs at the old farm, and I didn't want them to go to waste, so I transferred them over to the new machine along with all of the sugar that we had also harvested. I applied the eggs on the funnels, that way we could sort out all the random eggs with the good eggs. Then after that, I made a chute so that all of the cinder flour could go up into the basin, which was directly above it on the main floor. And now it was simply time to let all the ingredients start moving between every component of our design. The sugarcane was being grounded into sugar, and our eggs were moving through, making their way to the basin where they were going to be mixed together with the sugarcane and all that other junk. All in all, our setup was about, I'd say, 99% complete, although there was one last ingredient we needed to make this blaze cake, and that was the lava layer of frosting. Yeah, I think that's what the lava's supposed to be. So we were going to get our lava from our lava farm that we had at the workshop, and we had to basically pipe it all the way over to the power station, which meant I was going to have to drill a very long tunnel. Thankfully, I did have this drill that could mine in a 3x3 radius, so it only took half the time. And as you can see here, it was a very long process. But once the tunnel was done, I was free to place down the longest pipeline I had ever built on this world, paired with lots of cogs and lots of shafts to give it power so that all of the lava can flow from point A to point B. Now, there were a few glitches, and that's to be expected when you're pumping so much lava at such a long distance. But once you're able to work around those glitches, thank you Reddit for helping me out, you are able to get the lava to your blaze cake base and make a beautiful stack of blaze cakes. Once I fed them to the blaze burners, they turned blue, indicating that the heat was being cranked up, which also meant that the engines were starting to work as they should. Max power, you can tell by the cogs spinning really fast. We could also moderate how much water was going in. As you can see, the engines were maxed out because there was all the water and heat mixing together, but it also began to lower because I adjusted the RPM. But with the speed controller, I raised it from 80 RPM to 90, and it maxed out again, so yeah, the more RPM, the more power you get. As for the netherrack, well, as you can see, we were bottlenecking here because we needed more netherrack, so I built a portal, went to the nether, and I got access to the drill, which had plenty of power that would mine us more netherrack. although I was attacked by some pigs. Very annoying. And once it was done harvesting the netherrack I needed, I placed it down in the overworld so as to avoid getting killed by the pigs, and collected all the blocks I needed. And that solved the bottleneck issue. But yeah, let's go over the entire process one more time. So, we start here at the sugarcane farm. Sugarcane is collected by the harvester and transported into these chutes. The sugarcane drops down. Then after that, we have to sort it into two categories: silver sugarcane and gold sugarcane. They're no good, they won't get grounded up. But once they're separated, they're ground into sugar itself. The sugar goes down the belt where it's stored, and now for the chickens. Happiest chickens on earth. The chickens lay lots of eggs, which go down the chute. Those are sorted as well. We sort out all the tiered eggs. And as for the regular eggs, they continue down the belts, and after that we move down to the cinder flour area. It begins with netherrack being ground up by crushing wheels into cinder flour, and then the cinder flour is elevated via chutes and a fan into the basin, where they're pressed together to make a blaze cake base, and then filled with lava to make the blaze cake itself. After that, the cake is transported to the mechanical arm that feeds each blaze burner a blaze cake. Once they turn blue, that means you have lots of power, although you may notice that the meter is not where it should be. That's because you need more water. Thankfully, we have pumps, although the pumps aren't pumping enough water at a fast enough rate. So that's where we have to raise the RPM. And once the RPM is raised, the pumps have more rotational force, allowing them to put more water into the tanks. And once the water goes into the tank, the machines come to life. And you're probably wondering how we use all that power. Well, on the outside we have all of these belts moving around, and that's where you would basically plug your machine in. Voila, the power station. I also did a little landscaping outside, made a path, added some bushes on each side with some flowers just to make things nice. We're gonna make beautiful things in this area, and thanks to our power station, that is now possible. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was a lot of fun to make, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed. This has been Doublesal. Thanks for watching.